Hi, and welcome to our webinar today. Today we're going to be talking about financial analytics using IBM Cognos. We're going to be looking at several of the IBM Cognos tools that are out there and things that we've created for some of our customers in different industries, and talk about ways you can leverage some of those assets for your own company. My name is Brendan Austin. I'm the Financial Performance Management Lead for LPA Software Solutions. I actually have a degree in accounting, was an accountant for a number of years, was an IBM Cognos customer for a number of years, actually implemented some of these products out in the industry before I got into consulting. I worked for Deloitte Consulting for several years, implementing both ERP systems as well as different reporting systems. And came to LPA about 6 years ago, specifically working on IBM Cognos products in various industries. So today we're going to start off by talking about one of our pain points that we hear from our customers a lot is the whole budgeting and forecasting process. It's a big, nasty word to a lot of companies. And as an example, we're going to go over a typical process from one of the companies that we talked to several years ago. This company happened to be a hotel management company. They actually had over 200 locations, 200 hotels that they needed to update a monthly forecast for. And how they would start the process is that corporate would update all 235 of these spreadsheets on a monthly basis with actuals from the previous month, their up-to-date budget spend, their forecast from last month, etc. They'd get everything straightened out and everything all in the same format on all 235 spreadsheets. And they would then email those out to each one of the locations, as well as copies to the area directors out in the field. The hotel managers would then individually meet with their area directors, make those changes in those offline spreadsheets, a lot of times inserting columns, rows, changing formulas, etc. They would then review those with the area director. The area director would then upload those via FTP to a site, which corporate would then turn back around and download those and consolidate them and look at them. There's several problems with this. One, it was a very time-consuming process. It was fully manual. Any changes that were being made out in the field weren't even seen until they were brought back to corporate and reconsolidated. The whole process took about 3 weeks to complete. So as you can imagine, by the time the forecast was actually back at corporate and consolidated, it was almost always out of date at that point, and therefore somewhat useless. The other issue that they had is if a change needed to be made once it was reconsolidated, the whole process had to start over again. They had to resend out all the spreadsheets again. The other issue they had was, if somebody changed a spreadsheet, moved a formula, inserted a column or a row, that created a nightmare on the consolidation process. So basically, they came to us and they said, we need to streamline this process. They had a wish list, and this is their wish list. The first thing they wanted to do was automate some executive dashboard type reporting. They wanted to give their executives the ability to see real time how each one of the locations and each one of the regions were doing actual to budget to forecast as of today, and be able to drill down on that data and have it be real time. They also wanted that to be have mobile capabilities on that, so an iPad, iPhones, and Android devices. They wanted to be able to create instant daily forecasts. So whereas they were doing monthly forecasts in the past, and very time-consuming monthly forecasts, they actually wanted a system that was up and running all day long, every day, that each location could actually go in and update their forecast multiple times a day if they wanted to, with their current forecasted spend for the month and any expenses that they knew that were coming, they would be hitting their location. They could actually key those in. They wanted that forecast to then feed some of their other systems that authorize those expenditures on the AP side. They wanted to automate the consolidation and roll up. So no more FTPing these spreadsheets back and forth. They wanted an online system that once a change was made at the hotel level, that rolled up to that region, which rolled up to corporate immediately, as well as if somebody changed a revenue, would change the associated expense with it and replicate all the way down into net income. A big thing for them was the easy and effective user adoption. There was a lot of turnover in the field, and they needed something, an application that could be trained easily upon. Somebody could sit down and within a couple of hours be trained on the new application. It had to be web-based. And lastly was eliminate the reliance on IT resources. If they wanted to make a change to a template, change to a calculation, etc., they didn't want to have to go to IT to do that. They wanted a tool that finance or accounting could go in and make those changes and roll them out to the field without having to wait on IT. One of our customers in the area that we work with is a hospitality client. Talk a little bit about what we did for them. This is one of the top 5 based hotel property management companies. They had over 100 hotels and 15,000 rooms they manage across the U.S. They mainly do hotel revenue management, but they also do some revenue management and construction services. Their problem was very similar, where they had a very manual, labor-intensive budgeting and forecasting process, where they had many spreadsheets, no collaboration online, nobody knew who was updating what. They couldn't forecast at a daily level at all. It was all done at a monthly and a quarterly level. What we came in and did for them is we implemented TM1, IBM Cognos TM1, with an integration both to their ERP system as well as their Cognos Business Intelligence solution. So they were able to do dashboarding off of the TM1 data. All the TM1 data for forecasting, budgeting, and actuals was stored in TM1 and modeled in those cubes. And a web-based front end was put up on that, which they can then go in and update their forecast and budget online and immediately key in those numbers and see those changes. Here's an example of a dashboard that we've created for the finance area at one of our clients. Mocked up a little bit to make it somewhat client agnostic, but these are the types of things that we can create for anybody that needs it. Up at the top, upper left-hand corner, we've got starting these boxes are called widgets. Those widgets can be completely customized to each user. So if I don't like the colors of these charts and graphs, I don't like the type of chart it is, I can actually right-click on each one of those widgets and make changes to them and customize them to my experience. And when I save it, it only affects my user account. It doesn't change the default report or dashboard that's out there for everybody else to consume. You'll notice at the top of the screen, I've got a time slider bar, and that actually affects all of the data on the page. So if I were to change it from 2015 to 2014, each one of the charts and graphs would then move and update with that data. Drilling in on just that top section, we're looking at certain key performance indicators. So within the organization. So for this company, gross margin percent, revenue per FTE, and net cash flow were something that they wanted to push out across the company and have those be KPIs that everybody were able to see and able to drill down upon. So if you do want additional information about each one of these, you could drill down, let's say gross margin percent. You can see the components of gross margin percent actual to budget and actually see what data rolls up to that. The next section down on the dashboard shows some additional KPIs that the company is looking at. Gross operating profit, debt to equity ratio, inventory turnover, and over the right-hand side is what's called an RSS feed. The RSS feed shows them industry information or news articles that are coming out with links to those articles. These are real-time, so you can subscribe to any industry that you're a part of and put that feed on a dashboard. And so as things get posted out to the internet, you can actually click on that link and look at that information. I also have the ability to drill up or drill down on information as well. So in this case, if I go back to the screenshot, let's say I'm looking at the gross operating profit, and I'm specifically concerned with the North region. The North region historically has been doing not as great as I thought it was going to be, but I want to see the hotels in this case that make up the North region, and I want to look at each one of their performance. I can do that by simply clicking on this chart. And so what I'm going to do is right-click on that North region and select Drill Down. And when I do so, each one of the charts that were at the regional level drill down to that next layer of detail. So I can see gross operating profit is showing, my average daily rate by quarter is showing, my occupancy percentage is showing by property now. So I can see all the individual locations at that lower level of detail. Okay. Looking down, now you can go down to GOP, and it expands for all those locations within the North region, as well as any of the other graphs. Here's another example of another type of report or graph that I can do. In this case, we have labeled each one of our locations in our system with some location information, so latitude and longitude in a state that they're associated with. I can then roll up that data by that location information and then show that on a map. So if I wanted to go down to the county level, I can do that as well within each state. But here I just wanted to show my revenue unit cost per transaction, KPI, how it's averaging state over state. So I can quickly see that, say in Florida, my unit cost per transaction is much higher than it is in Texas or Washington State. And so then I can then drill down on that state and see the locations in that state and look at the revenue, the unit cost per transaction at each location if I wanted to, right from my dashboard. At the bottom of my dashboard, I've got a window which allows me to go in and update the forecasting budget immediately. Okay, so this information that I'm looking at the dashboard is looking at actual forecasting budget. I can actually go in and update that forecasting budget directly from the screen. And when I do so, my dashboard changes automatically. Okay. At the bottom of the screen also shows the workflow associated with that forecasting budget. So you can see on the left-hand side of that screen, I can see each one of the locations within the region that I'm responsible for and where they are in the forecasting budget process. The green symbol indicates that they have submitted their forecast or budget for approval, and they're complete. The orange means they've actually started. They've opened the template. They started making some changes, and the red indicates that no one's even really opened the template yet. So nobody's taken any ownership of it and made any changes to that data. Drilling in on my forecast template itself, I can see tabs across the top and rows and columns on each one of these tabs. Now, this is completely customizable to the way you would want to do your forecasting and budgeting itself. So this can be laid out in any way that you need to. These are actually created in Microsoft Excel with an add-in to Excel and then uploaded to the website to use as templates. So any formatting that you pretty much want to do, we can do within an Excel product. This just show you the feature functionality that's built into IBM Cognos. So this first tab, we're looking at the revenue side for a particular, in this case, hotel. Okay, and you can see as I'm making changes, so for instance, my June forecast for cancellation charges, I updated that amount to 1,800. And when I hit enter, it automatically highlighted that amount in blue. But not only did it highlight that particular month in blue, it went over and it highlighted everything else that I've impacted by that data entry that I've done. So it recalculated my total year for me. And if I scroll down, it changed my total sales revenue for June. It changed my total sales revenue for total year. And any other changes that I've keyed in as well. Replicate through the entire model immediately. There's no calculation engine that I need to run. There's no job that I need to run to get that data in there. And it's actually, we'll see in a minute, it's actually replicated to all my driver-based expenses that are linked to my unit sales, have automatically updated as well. So by changing those few income revenue numbers, I've changed all the way down to net income for my location, as well as the region that I roll up to, as well as the total company. I can also copy and paste from either Excel or from here to Excel. So if I wanted to track those numbers, or if I had numbers that I wanted to bring into my budget, I could copy and paste those from Excel. Or I could use what's called data spreading techniques, which are built into the product, which I could then go in and manipulate numbers by, say, a percentage change. So I could highlight a bunch of numbers and I could right click and say, I want to change these by, say, 25%. It would automatically change and increase all those by 25% automatically. Okay. So as I key in those changes, they're automatically highlighted and calculated. And then any dollar amounts can be driven off sales units or any other applicable business driver. So those drivers are completely customizable behind the scenes. We have some expenses behind the scenes that are driven off of unit sales. Some are just a flat dollar per month. So whatever your business needs that those drivers could be set up for, the tool can be completely customized to accommodate those drivers to get driver-based planning. Okay. We can also use what's called a sandboxing within the model. So this is a standard functionality. What sandboxing allows the user to do is create alternate versions of a budget or forecast to see what the results may be based upon different assumptions. Any user can do this, and they have the ability to create as many sandboxes as they want to. And those sandboxes apply to both revenue, expenses, anything that you're modeling in the system. If I wanted to go to Excel and use the Excel add-in instead of the web, I can get at the same sandbox information in Excel as I am looking at here. To create a new sandbox in a different version of the data, let's say I've already keyed in some of my forecasts. I'm looking pretty good. Here I'm looking at a total year net income of $18.8 million. But I wanted to see, what if I was able to launch a new product at my location? How would that impact my bottom line for the year? Well, I could go up to the sandboxing icon, click Create Sandbox. I give that sandbox a name, here, Assumption New Product, and click OK. And immediately, then the data is copied into that sandbox. I can then manipulate the data in that sandbox, make the changes for the new product, look at the new net income, and then I can jump back to the copy that I had saved previously. And then I can decide which one of those versions I want to submit as my final forecast to my manager. So I have that ability, and any one of the front ends to create that sandboxing capabilities that's just straight out of the gate. Okay. We've also done some payroll forecasting. So we had a lot of clients come to us and they say, When we do our forecasting and budgeting, payroll is a big expense to our company. And we actually want to forecast and budget down to the employee level. You can do that. Very easily done within the model, where we take each individual employee, we preload them from the previous year. So you've got an employee listing by department. We apply their salaries and wages, in this case, any unions that they're associated with. We calculate the number of hours that they're expected to work in that time period. That could be driver-based, or it could be just a flat number of hours that they're scheduled. Apply their rate, any incentives that they're projected to get over the next year, based on some assumptions, any pay increases, any benefits that are associated with positions. So if it's a full-time position, what benefits rate they should be getting. And we actually expand out and calculate all those different line item expenses associated with each employee in each department, and then roll those up and then feed those to the forecast and budget, to your payroll expense line items. And that's easily done, so it's easily customizable and easily adaptable to any business that you want to throw at the tool. Okay. Here's another example of a different IBM Cognos tool set that we've utilized and integrated in with our OLAP reporting tool as well as the Cognos Business Intelligence tool. So here we are using the TM1 product, which is the OLAP product, and SPSS, which is the predictive modeling product. We had a customer come to us and say, we have a big ask. We have all of this data that we look at each day for each one of our locations. And what we need to find out is what the optimal price to charge for a hotel room on any given day. And there's a bunch of different factors. And those factors are what our competitors are doing, maybe what events are going on in the area, historically, for that day of the week and that time of the year, how many rooms we really sell. Information from a third party that gives us additional information about our competitors and how we're doing against our competitors. Information about what our competitors are advertising for the day on, say, Hotwire, Travel, Velocity, Expedia, etc. Bring all that data in, consolidate it, and show it in one report, and tell us what the optimum price should be for us to gain the most revenue for that day, and then allow us to also overwrite that and put a comment next to it why we would overwrite that information. So here we've actually used the two tool sets, and we've actually created one web sheet that shows you on a day-by-day basis what the optimum rate should be, and then give the user the ability to actually override that rate and make a comment as to why it will be overwritten. The system will also track those comments as well. So not only is it tracking the numeric dollar figure, but it's tracking any comments associated with that dollar figure that you key in. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, we're going to look at some of examples in healthcare that we've dealt with. Okay. So the first thing I'm talking about is healthcare financial analytics. So within a healthcare organization, there's a need to continuously evaluate the services and service lines and make sure they're profitable and essential to the long-term success of the organization. So using financial analytics, it allows the organization to define how these metrics and drivers can be utilized to allocate those costs from their shared service lines to all the revenue generating service lines. So for instance, an X-ray clinic, the costs associated with that X-ray clinic need to be distributed to, say, the hospital that it's within, say, to the doctor's offices that utilize that X-ray clinic, etc. So for the X-ray techs, all the lab equipment, etc., that's all an expense to the hospital, and those need to be allocated so that they share those expenses across all the revenue generating organizations within the healthcare organization. So basically, using financial analytics in healthcare, they're allowing it allows the organization to analyze what happened and forecast what if. Okay. When we're talking about cost allocations, those financial analysts within a healthcare organization have to figure out what the best method is to allocate those costs across the organization. And it's different for each organization. It's different for each cost center that needs to be allocated. And one of the companies that we worked with came to us and they said, this is a huge problem. It's not just one model that we can use across the board. We need to come up with different methodologies for different areas. And what they were doing was it all in Excel previously. It was very time consuming, obviously very manual, and there was no integration between the Excel model and the reporting. They were having to create journal entries off of that Excel model manually. If there was a change made, again, very similar to our forecasting and budgeting example, it was just a nightmare. So they came to us and they said, we really want a solution that helps us do this cost allocation. Okay. So what we did is we came in and we first defined what the service lines were that needed to be allocated. So whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's retail, etc., the concepts are very similar. So first you define what it is you need to allocate out. So in this case, we're looking at a healthcare company. So we picked all the service lines that need to be allocated out. Then we said, okay, what are the data sources that we need to bring in to our solution? So here we're utilizing the IBM Cognos TM1 software to actually consolidate and analyze all that data. So we're actually bringing in information from different ledger systems, billing, payroll, various different systems, and bringing all that information in one single version of the truth so that we can consolidate it and analyze it all in one place. And then we came up with some allocation methodologies, and we applied those different allocation methodologies to each service line. So whether it's number of square feet, number of head count, hours, percentage of revenue, etc. And then we applied that to the model to come up with the allocation. And when we did so, we actually built the entire model. And in the center, you'll notice, we brought in all of these data points and connected them all together and came up with new allocated actuals and budgets. So a new set of financial statements, including those allocations. Now, completely automated, completely built within the system. As new actuals are loaded into the model, TM1 automatically calculates those allocation actuals and sends them to the right location. We then created some reporting on top of that. So on the left-hand side of the screen here, we can see an Excel template at a very high level. And then we created some dashboards as well, some web reporting with some charts and graphs that gives that allocated actual information as well on a dashboard. Now, budgeting and forecasting within healthcare is very similar to any other industry. This use case, we had a customer come to us, the CFO of a healthcare organization, and they had previously had a very manual Excel-based forecasting and budgeting model, but they wanted to go to a driver-based budget and forecast process. And they wanted to utilize the existing metrics that they were using to allocate those costs out for actuals out to the business. But they wanted to do it from the bottom up, and they wanted to roll that up across the organization, and they wanted to do the what if modeling using the sandboxing capabilities and be able to roll that out across the organization. Again, first what we did is we took a step back and we said, okay, what are the data sources for the actuals that we're going to be modeling? Okay. So again, we're pulling from the ledger, billing, payroll, basically any ODBC source that we can grab data from. We can bring in data from CSV, text files, and bring it all into one system behind the scenes. And then we said, okay, what budget line items do we actually want to calculate? Here, a big thing was salary, and there were different types of salary. First was fixed. So these are positions that just have to be to make the hospital run. Okay? Or if it's a physician's office, the physician's office has to run. It's a fixed. If the office or the hospital is open, that position is there and working. Some variable. So that variable is based upon either hours, headcount, or FTEs. And they may fluctuate based upon the number of patients, etc. And then the physician was done completely separately. So physician comp was done at the physician level, whereas the other positions were done at the physician level. So I may have 6 janitorial staff. They were all positioned, all budgeted in one line item. But the positions are all done individually and rolled up to one line item for physician salaries. And then we've got some fixed non-salaries for vendors, contract, and rent. Okay. Then we've got some other allocations that are in the model, and then of course we've got revenue. So basically, when we roll all that up and put it in the model, we came up with a workflow and a way to roll up that data. So we ended up creating a cost center budget, which then rolls up to service line, and then those allocations are done at the service line level. So we created the basic workflow consolidation, as well as some distributed reporting and analytics using the Cognos Business Intelligence tool, which then uses the power of the web and the analysis and the graphing capability of Cognos BI. And then the users can drill down from those reports and look at that information in detail directly from the web. Okay. Another use case that we have is we had a customer in healthcare come to us and they said, we have some high-level goals within our organization. And this was a very large organization that had hundreds of locations. Each one of those locations had the same basic KPIs that they're responsible for. But they needed to track the performance of those KPIs, and they wanted it to be immediate. They wanted full exposure to the entire organization. So anybody can go into a report and see up to date how they were tracking against that KPI. So the CEO came to us and said, look, we've got all this data. We don't know what to do with it. It's in all these disparate sources. We need to basically bring it all into one location, analyze it, create these KPI calculations off of it, and distribute that to the organization. It needs to be interactive. So basically he said, I need actionable information with a quick snapshot of how my hospital domains are performing relative to those goals and where the opportunities to improve exist. So, if an organization was performing poorly, he wanted to know why and immediately. So LPA came in and first said, okay, what are the problems? So first up was visibility. So many of these reports were disconnected. Many of them were many of the data points were sitting in spreadsheets on people's local machines, which made it very stale. Nobody had a single view of all that information. Um, the system constantly needed to be improved. The KPIs were changing, the measurements were changing, how to figure out how to do that. They were very reactive in the data because the data took so long to kind of cobble together. By the time they saw an issue, it was typically too late to fix it for the current period. Way too much time was being taken collecting and collating and preparing the data. Disseminating that information was a very difficult process. Security was a big deal. Um, and then basically, they also wanted to drive change at an employee level. So they wanted to get something out into every employee's hands that became something that was actionable. So a metric and a driver that every employee knew about, that had immediate visibility at, and they could drill down and see individual information about those KPIs. So what LPA helped them do was they helped create a healthcare dashboard. Okay, this dashboard is open to the entire organization and puts those KPIs right in front of everybody's screen. Okay, so the first thing was the operating margin. So this is a percentage number. As you can see here, the monthly actuals was 13%. Our target was 4%, way over target. But not only do we tell you what the actual versus target was, but we tell you what the trend is. So as of right now, it's still looking like it's going up. Okay. The target may be 5, but if the trend is going down, it could still be an issue, even though we're way above target still. Okay. Total cost per case. So here we are actually under target, but the trending is down. So it's something that we still need to look at. EBITDA, actual versus target. You can see that we're way above our target. And then individual KPIs are listed on the lower right-hand side for, say, patient care, community stewardship, etc. You'll notice that some of these data points are underlined. They're drillable at that point. So if they're underlined, I can actually click on that, and I can see the individual components of each one of those KPIs and look at the performance of each one of those components, actual target, as well, directly from this dashboard. Here's an example of another dashboard that we've done for some of our customers. Again, it's rolling up all that data from all these different sources and putting it in an actionable, presentable fashion so that it makes sense to users. So top left, we're looking at profit margin by service line. So each one of the service lines could actually come in here and look and see how much they're contributing to the overall profit margin line. Hospital profit margin by quarter, FTE by physician office type, and allocation of medical supplies amongst all the service lines. So any one of the drop downs at the top of each one of these widgets can be changed to drill in on maybe a specific time period or a specific company, specific type of expense, and customized to that user's own view. Okay. We've also done some work in the area of healthcare clinical reporting. So it basically, clinical reporting helps you mine all that data about your patients to become more proactive, increase productivity, and prevent your patients from slipping through the cracks. So basically it goes in and analyzes all that data, collaborates it, puts it all into one set of metrics and set of reports, which then can be changed and analyzed immediately within the system. Okay, switch gears and talk about manufacturing for a minute. One of our customers that we work with, they are a manufacturer of plumbing fixtures. They operate business globally. So one thing that they needed to do within whatever system they implemented was currency conversion. There were different labor laws in different countries, etc. They needed to account for that. But this company happens to run facilities in the U.S., Canada, UK, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and China. So they had various currencies they needed to work with. Um, their budgeting and forecasting process was very labor intensive. It was taking about 2.5 months to complete the budget on an annual basis. There was no forecasting previously because the budget process was so time intensive. Um, there was no visibility for management into operations and financial data. So specifically at the international locations, they had no idea how they were doing actually the budget. They just had a budget number. They may see a report a month after the fact, after actuals closed, but they wanted more up-to-date information than that at each one of the locations. So LPA came in and helped them implement the IBM Cognos Express suite for the entire company. Um, Not only did we do financial reporting using the TM1 and the Cognos BI products, we also implemented a forecasting and budgeting solution for them as well, which they go in and they automatically update all of those reports on a daily basis directly from the ERP system. So anybody in the company can go in on a daily basis and look at sales information. They can look at a prorated income statement for the day, for the month, actually forecast a budget. And so now it's all collaborative, it's all online, it's all via the web. Everything, all the currency conversion is done directly in those reports as well. So there's no dissemination of reports at the end of the month anymore. Accounting simply makes those journal entries, posts them to the ledger, and they're imported automatically into the IBM Cognos products. Okay. Here's an example of a KPI dashboard for a typical manufacturing type client. Here, this manufacturing client is very concerned with accounts payable and accounts receivable data. So the top line is AP, the bottom line is AR. They're looking at day sales outstanding, best possible versus actual, the two little graphs at the bottom. But this gives the ability, when you're looking at this dashboard for a particular location, I can actually see what my receivables and my payables are for my location. And all those underlying numbers, I can actually drill down on and see the invoice detail behind that. And the amount of invoice detail that I see is customizable. We have some clients that have actually put the images of these invoices, can attach those to that link, and you can do that as well. If, for instance, I wanted to see what the total AP was for my location, I would simply click on that $2,255.51 number, and it would pop open in a new screen all of the information for that AP number. Here we're looking at the current vendor total, the 3 million number, and it shows us all of the vendor information that comprise that number and the invoice amounts. Again, if I needed to add additional data to this drill down, I could, again with the invoice images if I needed to. But basically what this has done for this particular client is it's solved the problem of each one of these locations, calling up accounts payable and accounts receivable, having them on the phone constantly, asking them what the detail is behind some number that they saw in the report. It's now immediately drillable as invoices and receivables are actually keyed into the system. They show up automatically on that report. The aggregations are changed immediately, and then they can see that when they drill down on that number, they can see those numbers show up in this list automatically as well. So that a lot of those phone and email conversations going back and forth between individual locations looking for data in the AP and AR departments have gone away because it's now more self-service reporting type of situation that they've got. Here's an example of a couple more widgets, if you will, on the dashboard. We're looking at net sales over years. So here we've actually loaded into the system many years worth of data, all the way back to 2008 by month. So I can look and see total for my location, how the sales trend month to month, year to year. Okay. On the right-hand side, I can see what my sales to profit percentage is over the year. So I can see that in 2015, obviously the year is not finished yet. I'm not anywhere close to total sales yet for the year, but my profit percentage has increased from last year. So that's an overall good thing. Here I've got a self-service operating level income statement where I've got the actionable items for each location listed as rows. So I start at customer sales and go down. And then up on the top, I've got the amounts by month and then a percentage of net sales calculated. Again, each one of these items are drillable. So for instance, customer sales, let's say I wanted to know the information posted as of today for customer sales for that first time period. All that I do is click on it, and what it does is it opens up another window with a report, and it shows me the sales detail for that month. So here I was looking at June 30th for the month, and it shows me all the sales by sales rep, not only the dollar amount, but the amount of pieces that they sold, and it will match that amount that I drove from. So again, it's actionable, it's drillable directly from a web page, no interaction back and forth through the users and the accounting and finance group. Another example of a different type of information for manufacturing. Here we're looking at allocations, financial information summarized into high-level cost categories. For this particular industry, labor cost is a huge amount of net sales. So here we clicked on the graph up top, which shows us that the different components of that cost as a percentage of net sales. And here, drilling in on labor, it actually opens up in another window and shows me by time period all the labor charges that were included in those expenses. So again, it's immediate as those changes are updated and consolidated. They change in those reports automatically, and then of course then are drillable. Okay. At this point, we've got time for a couple questions. So we're going to open those up and see if we've got any questions from the audience. Okay, the first question that we've got that's come in is, how flexible is the system? It's really two questions. How easy to develop? Okay, so the first question, how flexible is the system or the solution? The solution is very flexible. And I think what we showed you was not only is it financial analysis, basically anything that you're currently cobbling data together from different sources or even one source, you need to disseminate that information. You need to model that data. We have some customers that it's payroll information, operations information, sales and marketing data. Basically, it's almost limitless in what you can bring into the solution and how you can model it. So it is completely customizable. And to answer the second question, how easy is it to develop? These tools basically use business logic behind the scenes to do all the calculations, etc. Most of these reports were created by accounting and finance type people with accounting and finance type backgrounds. Our take on a project is, by the time we leave a project, you guys should be the experts on this technology. So the first thing that we do is typically when we do implementation is training. So we do some base training to show you guys how to use the product, what the terminology is, what it can do, what it can't do, and then we take you along during the implementation. So by the time we're done, you guys should be able to create and change your reports yourselves without having to call LPA and or IBM to make every little change that needs to happen. Of course, we would be there if you need us, but the intent is that you guys will become the experts, and you don't need a big IT background to do this type of development. Most of it's done, like I said, in Excel, and most of it's very easy and it can be picked up typically within a 3 or 4 day time span training. The second question is, how long is a typical implementation? It's a good question, and it really varies. I would say a typical just base financial reporting uh, implementation where you're doing the Cognos TM1 and the Cognos BI the report. So a set of financial statements, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, maybe throw in some forecasting and budgeting at a high level. You're looking at 8 to 12 weeks probably. Of course, it's going to depend upon how many data sources we're getting at, how clean is the data, what the templates would look like, as far as what's being built, how many users we're talking about. But I'd say start out in the 8 to 10 week time frame, and it goes up from there, just depending on how complex it is and how many different data elements you want to bring in, etc. And I think we have time for one more question. I'll pick this one. Is the solution cloud-based or on-premise? The answer is it can be either. IBM Cognos has cloud-based solutions for both, or really all the IBM Cognos products at this point. So it does not have to be on-premise, but we do have on-premise clients as well. So it's really up to you and your model. Either way, we can talk to you about what's the best fit for your organization, what the differences are in cost over time. So with that, I think we're out of time. I want to thank you for attending today's webinar. For those of you that have submitted questions that we haven't gotten to, we will follow up with you in an email and answer your questions. Don't worry. Our website is below. If you go out to that website, you can sign up for upcoming webinars and events that we're holding. And our contact information is below. Really appreciate your time, and thank you very much. Have a good day.